What if I told you that your student loan, your mortgage loan, even your retirement funds, and the anxiety you feel when you check your bank account have roots that stretch back not just decades, but over a millennia? The fundamental questions we ask today about debt, about fairness, about growth were being debated in the Mesopotamian marketplaces and on the steps of the Roman Forum. Welcome to Roots and Realities, the podcast where we dig deep into the past to understand the world we inhabit today. I'm your host, Manu Nellutla. For most of us, economics is a modern, complex, and often intimidating field. It's all about charts and graphs, interest rates, and acronyms like GDP and CPI. But the economy isn't just an algorithm running in the background of our lives. It's the very system we use to organize ourselves, to distribute resources, and to survive while we thrive. And that system didn't spring into existence with the theories of the Scottish economist Adam Smith, who is considered the father of capitalism. Nor did it begin to form at the New York Stock Exchange. Its DNA was coded thousands of years ago in clay tablets, in shipments of grain down the River Nile, and in the shared rules of a hunter gatherer tribe. Today, we are embarking on a journey through time. We are going to compare the economic operating systems of the ancient world with the globalized, digitized system of the present. What has changed? Or what has remained the same? What can these ancient roots teach us about our modern realities? So let's start by clearing up a common misconception. If you asked an ancient Roman senator or an Egyptian scribe about their economy, they would have given you a blank stare. The word economy itself comes from the Greek word oikonomia, which literally means management of the household. For the ancients, what we call the economy wasn't a separate sphere of life. It was deeply embedded in everything else, whether it's religion, in politics, in family, and even in social status. The goal wasn't abstract growth for its own sake. The primary goals were stability, social cohesion, and ensuring that the powerful stayed powerful. Let's travel to our first stop, ancient Mesopotamia, around 2000 BCE. In the cities of Sumer and Babylon, the temple and the palace were the centers of economic life. They were the largest landowners, the biggest employers, and the primary distributors of goods. Grain, wool, and oil were collected as taxes, stored in massive warehouses, and then paid out as rations to soldiers, priests, and state laborers. This wasn't a market transaction. It was redistribution, a system designed to maintain the social order. What's truly fascinating is what they invented here. They needed to keep track of all this. So, on simple clay tablets, they created the world's first ledgers. They recorded loans, contracts, and crucially, debt. The standard was often barley or a fixed weight of silver. And with debt came its constant companion, interest. The Sumerian word for interest, mash or mesh, was also the word used for a calf. Think about that metaphor. The loan is like a cow and the interest is its offspring. It's a natural organic increase. But they also understood the danger. When debts piled up, often due to a bad harvest, society could become dangerously unstable. Small farmers would lose their land and be forced into debt servitude. To prevent this, rulers would periodically declare a clean slate, a jubilee. They would cancel non-commercial debts, freeing people and restoring social balance. It was an economic reset button born out of necessity. Now let's go to our next stop, the Mauryan Empire in the 3rd BCE. The Mauryan Empire was one of the largest empires of its time, and its administration was guided by a stunningly detailed text, the Arthashastra, attributed to the shrewd advisor Chanakya, also known as Kautilya. Forget the 18th century economist Adam Smith for a moment. Arthashastra was a comprehensive playbook for statecraft and management written 2000 years earlier. The Arthashastra wasn't about free markets. It was about a strong centralized state that actively managed the economy. It detailed tax policies, regulated weights and measures, managed state owned mines and forests, and it even set rules for trade guilds, known as Shrenis. These guilds were more powerful bodies that set quality standards and provided social security for its members. A fascinating blend of commerce and community. Again, the goal wasn't abstract growth, but a stable, prosperous, and secure state. The Mauryans also presided over a vast network. Their trade routes connected India to Persia, Greece, and beyond, thus spreading their philosophy and the markets across the subcontinent. Now let's jump forward to the Roman Empire. Here the scale is completely different. The Roman economy was a marvel of logistics. They had a common currency, the denarius, used from Britain up to Syria. They built roads, aqueducts, and ports to facilitate massive scale trade. The city of Rome itself was a metropolis of 1 million people that couldn't feed itself. Its survival depended on the annona, which is the state organized shipment of grain from Egypt and North Africa. This was then distributed to the citizens often for free or at a subsidized price. Was this welfare? Yes, but it was also a tool of political control. A population that is fed properly is a very quiet population. But underneath this sophisticated system was a brutal reality. The Roman agricultural engine, the vast estates called latifundia, ran on the backs of enslaved people. The wealth that built the Colosseum and funded the legions was extracted through conquest and forced labor. In the ancient world, labor was not a free market. For a huge portion of the population, it wasn't a choice at all. So the key takeaways from the ancient world is that economics was embedded in society. Its goal was stability and order, not growth. Wealth was primarily based on land, and labor was often unfree. There was trade, there was debt, there was money, but the logic was completely different. So, if the ancient world was built on these principles of stability, hierarchy, and embeddedness, what happened? How did we get from a world of household management to a world of hedge funds? From a system designed to prevent change to one that demands it constantly. That story, the story of great transformation, is where we are going next. Let us explore how the market broke free from society and in many ways began to run it. It was a slow revolution spanning centuries, from the late Middle Ages through the Enlightenment. The merchant class grew in power, long distance trade routes expanded, and cities began to assert their independence from feudal lords. But the real intellectual earthquake came in 1776, the same year as the American Revolution. A Scottish philosopher named Adam Smith published a book called The Wealth of Nations. Smith argued that a nation's wealth wasn't its hoard of gold, but its productive capacity. And the best way to unleash that capacity, he said, was to let individuals pursue their own self interest in a free market. As an example, a baker doesn't bake bread out of the goodness of his heart, but to earn a living. Yet in doing so, he provides bread for everyone. This coordination, guided as if by an invisible hand, would lead to the greatest good of the greatest number of people. This was a radical idea. It proposed that the economy could and should be a self regulating system, separate from religious dogma or direct state control. It laid the foundation for capitalism. And then two more revolutions poured fuel on this fire. First, the Industrial Revolution. The invention of the steam engine and the factory production changed humanity's relationship with work and nature. For the first time, wealth wasn't just tied to land. It could be generated from machines, from capital, and from innovation. People moved from countryside to cities, selling their labor for a wage. This created a modern working class. Land, labor, and capital, which were the factors of production, are now all commodities to be bought and sold in the market. The economy was officially disengaged from its traditional social context. The second revolution, called the Financial Revolution, changed the way value of trade or goods were managed. For most of history, money was a thing, a shell, a lump of silver, a gold coin. It had intrinsic value. But as economies grew, this became cumbersome. The solution was currency. The dollar or the euro in your pocket is a piece of paper or a digital entry. Its value comes not from the material it's made of, but from the trust and authority of the government that issues it, or collective agreement that it is worth something. This abstraction allows for the creation of vast amount of credit, fueling investment and, you guessed it, growth. And growth became the new religion. We even invented a metric for it: gross domestic product, or GDP. The health of a nation was no longer measured by its social stability or moral virtue, but by the ever increasing velocity of its transactions. So now we have our two poles: the ancient embedded economy of stability and the modern disembedded economy of growth. You would think they have nothing in common, but this is roots and realities. And this is where we find the echoes and connect the dots. The problems haven't disappeared, they have just changed their clothes. Let's look at a few parallels. The first one is debt. The Babylonians, worried about farmers falling into debt and destabilizing the kingdom, invented the clean slate jubilees to wipe out all the debt. Today we talk about the student debt crisis and farmer loan crisis, etc. Millions are burdened by loans for an education that was supposed to guarantee a better life. Farmers continue to take loans to sustain their farms during non-productive years. We debate bankruptcy laws and loan forgiveness. The technology has changed from clay tablets to digital accounts, but the fundamental tension is identical. What is the moral and social function of debt? When does it fuel progress, and when does it become a form of bondage? The Mesopotamians saw it as a systemic risk requiring systemic solutions. And we are still wrestling with that very idea. The next important insight is about inequality. In Rome, the wealthy elite owned latifundia. These vast agricultural estates squeezed out small farmers. This concentration of land created a huge gap between the super rich and the poor. Sounds familiar? Today we talk about the top 1%. The mechanisms are different. It's not about owning all the land, but it's also about owning stocks, intellectual property, and capital. But the pattern of wealth concentration is historical constant. A Roman historian called Plutarch warned that an imbalance between rich and poor is the oldest and the most fatal ailment of all republics. That warning echoes as loudly today as it did 2000 years ago. How about globalization? The Romans built an interconnected world with their roads and shipping lanes, all to funnel resources to the center. They faced disruptions from pirates, revolts in distant provinces. Today, our global supply chains are the Roman roads of the 21st century. A microchip is designed in California, fabricated in Taiwan, assembled in China, and installed in a car in Germany. It's infinitely more complex, but the logic is similar: hyper-efficiency and interconnectedness. And it's just as fragile. We saw this with the COVID-19 pandemic, a ship getting stuck in the Suez Canal, or the geopolitical tensions like wars and tariffs. These are our modern-day pirates and provincial revolts, threatening the flow of goods that our growth-based system depends on. Finally, let's talk about the commons. For much of human history, many essential resources were held in a common. What is a common? For example, a village might share a land pasture for grazing or a forest for wood. There were rules, of course, but the resource belonged to the community. That is what a common means. The modern economical model is predicated on the opposite: privatization, turning everything into property that can be sold or owned. This has led to incredible innovation, but it also gives us the tragedy of the commons. When no one owns the atmosphere or the oceans, it is in every individual's or company's self-interest to pollute them for free. Climate change is, in many ways, the ultimate consequence of this disembedding the economy from the natural world. The ancients, whose survival was tied directly to the health of their environment, would have found our carelessness utterly profound. So, The anxieties are the same: debt, inequality, the fragility of our connections, the destruction of our shared environment. The operating system has been updated, but the bugs, the ghosts in the machine are still ancient. We have traveled from Mesopotamian temples to the global digital marketplace. We have seen how the very purpose of our economic life has shifted from community stability to individual growth. But the most important lessons from this journey is one of perspective. Our current economic system, capitalism, consumerism, the relentless pursuit of GDP growth, can feel as natural as inevitable as the weather, but it's not. It was built, it was designed piece by piece over centuries based on a specific set of ideas about human nature and progress. And what has been built can be examined, it can be questioned, perhaps it can be modified. Understanding that ancient societies ran on a completely different software should empower us. It proves that there are other ways of organizing our economic lives are as much as possible. The ancients prized stability, reciprocity, and social cohesion. We prize efficiency, innovation, and individual liberty. The challenge of the 21st century is not to go back, but to integrate. Can we build an economic system that combines the dynamism of the modern world with the wisdom of the ancient? A system that recognizes we are not just consumers and producers, but members of a community on a finite planet. What are the dead jubilees that we need today? What are the commons we should protect? Those are the questions our ancient roots compel us to ask about our modern reality. Please do provide your thoughts in the comment section of this video. That's all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. You can also find us on Spotify and please follow us on Instagram. Thanks for digging deep with me today. I am Manu Nellutla and this has been Roots and Realities.